The Way of Kings, the most talked about, hyped about fantasy book in recent memory, perhaps ever. But is it really that great? Let's drink about it. Hey everyone, the book and the drink here, and do not adjust your television sets. Yes, my drink is actually glowing, and we'll talk about the significance of that and how it relates to the book a little bit later when I show you how to make the drink and show you the special ingredient that is making it glow like this. But first, let's talk about this great book. The Way of Kings is the first book in a 10-part series called the Stormlight Archives. And Brandon Sanderson has written 3 books so far, with another one coming probably in November. Now, I know what you're thinking, do I really want to get into a series where the author's only written 3 books? Perhaps you've started other ones in the past and maybe the author kind of just stopped writing, or maybe they're taking their sweet time getting those done, and you don't want to start another series and risk another unfinished adventure. Still love you guys. What makes Sanderson a little bit different from his contemporaries is that he is a prolific writer, putting out 2 to 4 books a year somehow. In addition, Sanderson has shown that he can finish series. His Mistborn trilogy is beloved by all who read it. And you may not know this, but he actually finished off The Wheel of Time after Robert Jordan was ailing, and he actually completed the series for him. He's also put together a team that surrounds him and takes care of a lot of the logistical matters that comes with being an author in this day and age. A lot of people don't know that being an author isn't just writing your book and selling it. There's the publishing and the marketing, and you got to do interviews and social media. There's this whole gamut of things that you have to do in addition to just writing the books that take up your time, obviously, from writing those books. And he's done a great job of getting a team together that takes care of that for him so that he can focus on his writings. Yes, I know the books can be kind of daunting. They're all pretty big. The first one coming in at 1,001 pages. The second one at 1,080, and the third one at a whopping 1,233. And if we continue that rate of increase over 10 books, you're looking at the last book being over 2,500 pages. Now, I don't think that's actually going to happen, as Tor Publishing probably won't allow it, and I don't think people will want to read an encyclopedia length worth of books to get through a fantasy series, for those of you who still know what an encyclopedia is. So why do people love this series so much? Yes, the plot and the characters and the world building is all great, and we'll talk about those, but I think the number one reason, the main reason why people love Brandon Sanderson and can get into his books and get through them despite their large size is because of his writing style. He has a very direct, no-nonsense writing style that still makes things interesting, but cuts out all the poetic, flowery, fancy stuff that you don't need to know about, and just gets to the meat of what's going on, the hearts of the plot and the characters. And that keeps the books moving forward and the pages turning, and it's really a joy to read it. All right, let's talk about the characters for just a minute here. There are 3 main ones that we follow in this book, and the way that Sanderson writes his characters, they have a lot of depth to them. They're not black and white, they're both morally and philosophically gray, and you can see that in their decisions and their actions as they go through the course of the book. The characters in this book are very active. They're not just idly sitting by and waiting for things to happen to them. They are continually driving the plot and the narrative forward, which makes it a fast and fun read. The character-driven format of modern fantasy is on full display here, and I think you really enjoy and care about reading the characters that are in this book and the series. There's one more thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to reading a Brandon Sanderson novel here in the early 2020s, and that's what I'm calling the Brandon Sanderson reading experience. Unlike any other author, he really lets you in behind the curtain to see some of the machinations that it takes to write a novel that is science fiction or fantasy. He hosts these 2 to 3 hour-long signing sessions on YouTube where he hangs out with his pet parrot Magellan and answers a whole bunch of user questions, and they pretty much ask him everything and anything under the sun, and he is very forthcoming about his answers, whether they relate to his books and his plots and characters, or perhaps upcoming books that he's working on, and even some of the challenges and mistakes that he's had in the past. It's really, really cool to get that insider perspective from a world-renowned author who's sold millions of copies and whose book you are reading. And somehow he finds the time to teach a university-level class at BYU on the very subject of writing sci-fi and fantasy. The cicadas are out right now. There you can find him in his signature sport coat and t-shirt teaching a class of students, and he posts those classes on YouTube. And the various lectures that he has includes things like building a magic system and putting together a world and character development and plotting, and it goes on from there. And he gives examples from his own books and from other works from other authors and movies to basically solidify those concepts for you. He also talks about some of his influences for writing some of the characters that he has and some of the religions and how he came up with those and the languages and how he developed them. And it's really cool to hear him talk about these things that you're reading about in the book right now, especially the one about the plot development, because you can see the ebb and flow that he tries to put into the book overall and into each chapter, making them really mini stories that have a peak and an ending. And it's just fascinating to have that perspective from a writer that you're reading about. Now, let's go back to the other me that's going to talk about the book some more and make those drinks. Another thing that shines in this book is the world building. And I think it kind of has to if you're going to write this many pages and have an epic fantasy. Your world really has to come through to the reader. And it does so wonderfully here, as Sanderson has built himself a very unique type of world, and he does a brilliant job of introducing you to the world bit by bit over the course of the books, and not just dumping you with information. And it's really cool to kind of discover little things along the way that you may have noticed that he mentioned before, and now he's mentioning it and explaining it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what that meant. The world is expansive and diverse and multicultural, and Sanderson pretty much goes into every single detail that you would want to know about a brand new world that you're discovering, including the flora and fauna and the weather system and pretty much anything else you could think of to ask. As part of the world building, we have to talk about the magic system or magic systems that he's put into his books. The main driving force of magic in the world, and I guess this is not really a spoiler as it's in the name, is storms and stormlight. Now, the inhabitants of this world capture the stormlight in spheres that glow, which brings us back to our drink connection here, which is a gin and tonic infused with stormlight. A gin and tonic, by the way, is kind of a base drink. Once you've made it, you can add different things to it to take it in different directions. This particular one has lime and mint and peppercorns in it, and you can mix it up from there and get creative, and we'll make a couple of different variations later on. The magic system is very expansive and well thought out, and it's really fun to watch the characters kind of interact with it and discover what they can do and what powers they can have and what future powers they can see themselves having. So I hope that makes your decision easier to go out and pick up these books. But don't make the same mistake that I did. I went to 2 different used bookstores looking for Brandon Sanderson books, and they just are not out there. People do not sell these books. They love them so much. Go to a new book retailer if you have one in your area, or the links below the like button will also take you to a place where you can buy these. If you're going to buy physical copies of the books, I definitely recommend getting the hardcovers, as the map in here is quite gorgeous. And then throughout the book, you'll find these full-page black and white pictures and descriptions that help to define the world just a little bit more. And I think you're gonna like this book and the series, even if you're not a high fantasy reader. This is a good introduction, as Brandon Sanderson's writing style will allow you to kind of ease into the genre. Let's go make our Stormlight Gin and Tonic. Hit that subscribe button and I'll meet you at the bar. Let's concoct our Stormlight Gin and Tonic, but first there's something missing. Hold on a sec. There we are. Gin and tonics are actually quite easy to make with very few ingredients, but they're kind of a base like I mentioned, and you can build up from there. And we'll make several variations with some of the accoutrement that we have here. To start off, we'll just put some ice in the glass. To fill a glass this size, we're gonna go with 2 ounces of gin to start with, and feel free to use any gin you have on hand, but don't go for anything too expensive, as the tonic is gonna override much of the nuanced flavors that's in the gin. Gin goes right in the glass. And then we're gonna go with twice as much tonic as we did gin, but if that gets too sweet for you, go ahead and cut that back just a little bit, or do what a good friend of mine told me, which is to go half tonic and half soda, which will also temper the sweetness. So in this case, we're gonna go for 4 ounces of the tonic, right in. And then to garnish our Stormlight gin and tonic, we're gonna wanna use mint, just a sprig will do, and some lemon wedges, right in. And then we're gonna throw in some peppercorns. Gin has a lot of spices in its ingredients, and the peppercorns help to bring out those flavors a little bit. And there we are, a Stormlight gin and tonic. Quite easy to make, and I know what you're wondering, how come it's not glowing like it was earlier in the video? And that's because we need a light source for it, a special light. And if you haven't figured this out already, it is a black light. Shining a black light on tonic makes it glow this bluish color, which is quite gorgeous, I think. Let's make another gin and tonic with some fruits that are in season right now, and this one's gonna be a berry flavored gin and tonic. For this, we're gonna wanna muddle some of the fruit before we add ice to it. So let's grab a couple of blueberries and maybe a strawberry and a blackberry and just toss them all in your glass. And then we're gonna go ahead and just squish them a little bit here just to muddle them up like so. And then we'll add the ice. Then we'll go for the gin again. And then once again, we'll do about twice as much of the tonic or to taste. And then we'll just garnish that with some of the remaining fruit that we have. There we are, a nice summer drink that I think you're gonna enjoy. And this one also glows blue color. For this next variation, we're gonna make more of a wintry type gin and tonic. I have some blood oranges here that are left over from the season, and I'm gonna go ahead and use those. Again, we're gonna muddle these a little bit just to get some of the juices flowing into our drink. Just take a couple of these and toss them in the bottom, and then we'll go ahead and smash them up. Then we'll add the ice. All right, we'll go in again with 2 ounces of our gin. And then again with twice as much of the tonic. And this one's gonna be a little bit more savory, and we're gonna put a couple of ingredients in that you might associate with cooking instead of making drinks, but trust me, it goes well with the blood orange in here. And that's gonna be cloves, the spice, and rosemary. And they'll go right in. And then a sprig of rosemary. And then we'll garnish with another blood orange that's been sliced. There we are, another variation of a gin and tonic. They're all actually quite good. I think depending on your mood, you can just go with different ingredients to sway it in that direction. Just as a bonus here, let's make another colored Stormlight drink. For this version of the Stormlight drink, we're gonna go with vodka because I think it pairs better with energy drinks. And it's another clear liquid, which is a requirement for having a glowing drink. So we'll go with 2 ounces of the vodka. And then we'll just top it off with the energy drink. You can just eyeball this. And there we are. Something that I used to drink in my 20s, not so much anymore, but it does glow a nice yellow color. Nice. Let's get them all back on the table here. Next time you have your Stormlight party, which is not a thing, but we can make it a thing, go ahead and invite your friends over. I would string maybe some blacklight LEDs or fluorescent bulbs to kind of cover the whole place. And I think you guys will enjoy some delicious drinks and have some fun. Until next time, cheers.